In today's lesson, we'll be learning about negative and zero exponents. Before we begin, let's review the exponent laws. For the product rule, when you're multiplying exponents with the same base, you add the exponents. For the quotient rule, when you're dividing exponents with the same base, you subtract the exponents. For the power of a power rule, when you have an exponent raised to another exponent, you multiply the exponents. For the negative exponent rule, you need to write the reciprocal of the base and change the exponent from negative to positive. For the zero exponent rule, it's quite simple. Anything raised to an exponent of 0 is just 1. How exactly does the negative exponent rule work? Let's begin by simplifying the expression 3 to the power of 2 divided by 3 to the power of 5. Remember, when dividing exponents with the same base, you subtract the exponents using the quotient rule. So that means we're going to get 3 to the power of 2 subtract 5. And that becomes 3 to the power of negative 3. At this point, you should use your negative exponent rule, which means we're going to write the reciprocal of the base. So the reciprocal of 3 is 1 over 3. And instead of a negative exponent, we change it to positive. So we have 1 over 3 to the power of 3, which simplifies to 1 over 27, since 3 to the power of 3 is 27. Let's try to expand this without using the exponent laws. So 3 to the power of 2 is 3 times 3. And 3 to the power of 5 is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. You should notice that these 3's are going to cancel out. These 3's are going to cancel out, which leaves me with a 1 in the numerator and these in the denominator, which is the same thing as 1 over 3 to the power of 3. And you know that already simplifies to 1 over 27. And that's how the negative exponent rule works. How exactly does the zero exponent rule work? Let's begin by simplifying the expression 3 to the power of 5 divided by 3 to the power of 5. Remember, when you divide exponents with the same base, you subtract the exponents. So that becomes 3 to the power of 5 subtract 5. That simplifies to 3 to the power of 0. And you've been told that anything raised to an exponent of 0 is 1. If I were to expand this without using any of the exponent laws, you would get something like this. 3 to the power of 5 is the same thing as 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 over 3 to the power of 5, which is exactly the same thing. You should remember that all these 3's are going to cancel out, which gives us essentially 1 over 1, which is the same thing as 1. And that is how the zero exponent rule works. In our first example, we want to simplify the expression 4 to the power of negative 1. You should realize that we're going to be using the negative exponent rule, which means we have to write the reciprocal of the base. So the reciprocal of 4 is 1 over 4, and the exponent turns from negative to positive, and anything to the power of 1 stays the same. Over to the right, we want to simplify the expression 8 to the power of 0. You should realize that we'll be using the zero exponent rule. Anything raised to an exponent of 0 is 1. In our second example, we want to simplify the expression bracket negative 2 bracket to the power of negative 3. You should first realize that we're going to be using the negative exponent rule, which means we have to write the reciprocal of the base. Since the base is negative 2, its reciprocal will be 1 over negative 2. and I'm putting the negative 2 in brackets because the exponent is going to turn from negative to positive. And the exponent applies to not just 2, but negative 2. There is a big difference. Let's expand this a little bit. So that simplifies to negative 2 multiplied by negative 2 multiplied by negative 2. So negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. However, you should know that we don't like to write the negative sign in the denominator if we can avoid it. Therefore, you can simplify your answer to negative 1 over 8. Over to the right, we want to simplify the expression bracket 2 over 3 bracket raised to the exponent of negative 2. You should realize that we're going to be using the negative exponent rule, which means we are going to have to write the reciprocal of the base. And the reciprocal of 2 over 3 is 1 over 2 over 3. The negative exponent now becomes positive. We're going to expand this a little bit. So that is the same thing as 2 over 3 multiplied by 2 over 3. When you're multiplying fractions, you just have to multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. Let's just make some space first. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 3 is 9. And this is a very strange looking fraction. This is the same thing as 1 divided by 4 over 9. So let's write that down. 1 divided by 4 over 9. And when you're dividing by a fraction, you need to multiply by its reciprocal. So that's going to be 1 multiplied by 9 over 4, which simplifies to 9 over 4, because anything multiplied by 1 stays exactly the same.